Hello everyone and welcome back to Programming in Access 2013. My name is Steve Bishop and today we're going to be talking more about VBA or Visual Basic for Applications. And more specifically today we're going to be talking about evaluating expressions. Now evaluating expressions are a very basic and prime and very important aspect of Visual Basic and really for any programming language that you're going to encounter, because what evaluating expressions do is they determine what it is that your code is going to do. It determines the flow of the code, okay? Because certain circumstances are going to be in place that you want to execute this code under this circumstance or do this code in this circumstance. So that's what evaluating expressions are for. And today we're going to be covering the if statement. Now, the if statement evaluates two values to see if the expression is true or false. All right? And that's really strictly all that the if statement does. It's going to evaluate two different values, and based upon the evaluation of those two values, it's going to return a result of either true or false. And that's it. No other values, just true or false. Now, these are what we call operators. And you may recognize these from algebra if you took algebra or pre-algebra, or really some remedial math sometimes has some of these things too. And I'm just going to go over these signs real quick because they probably don't look exactly like what you're used to, but you'll understand these here. The equal sign is pretty obvious. I think everybody knows what equal sign is. Okay? So we're going to say value 1 is equal to value 2. This means not equal to. Okay, this is the way that VB is going to do. This is the operator of not equal to. So it's the counterpart to equals, is not equals. Then of course we have the greater than sign. So we're saying if value 1 is greater than value 2, then we have the less than sign, which is value 1 is less than value 2. And then we have the greater than or equal to sign. So we're saying value 1 can be greater than or equal to value 2, and this would still result in a true statement if that's the case. Then we're saying value 1 is less than or equal to value 2. So we're saying, make sure that value 1 is less than all the way up to being equal to value 2. Then that would return a true result. You can also use the and or in order to evaluate other criteria. So you can do something rather complicated. You can say, so like we could say a range of different values, numerical values, because we want to say, what if we want to make sure a value is greater than 10, but it's also less than 6. Or, no, that wouldn't make sense, would it? Less than 10 or greater than 6. So that would give us anything between 9, 7, and 8, right? We would have 9, 7, and 8 would all be true. So ands and ors are very important to being able to determine some different statement, some different results in our if statements. Now, when you're doing an if statement, you must use the if, then, else, an end if code block, and I kind of missed the if part at the end if, but you'll see that this is a very common theme amongst all of the code that you write in Visual Basic. You must have some sort of end statement on it, and it's going to begin with the if first, and then you're going to have the then and the else, but the end is always going to be at the very end of your code block. Okay, that is going to say, I am ending this if statement. And that will be end, and then you'll see if at the end there. And it'll make more sense when we write it out. But this is a very common thing you will find on all of your code. Every code block must end with this end statement. And you're going to specify what the end of it is. Like I said, you'll see this and it'll make a lot more sense. But I could have probably have done a whole video on this code blocking. Maybe even included it in the way that we segment out our code. But you'll see, we'll use the end statement so frequently that it'll just become second nature to you, and you'll see how important it is. Now, just like in algebra or pre-algebra, you can use parentheses to separate specific evaluations. And I don't know if you remember this, but you use those parentheses for things like, let's say, 2 plus 2 divided by 6. Well, depending upon which two of those numbers, 2 plus 2 divided by 6, if you put parentheses around the 2 divided by 6, you'll get a completely different result than if you put parentheses around 2 plus 2, right? Because 2 plus 2 equals 4, divide that by 6 comes up with one result. But 2 plus, and then put parentheses around 2 divided by 6, you'll get a whole other result based upon that evaluation, okay? So where you put parentheses is very, very important to how your evaluations are going to be done. So let's use an example. Let's just do a quick, simple example. This is if 2 equals 2, then. So you must begin your if block, your if code block, with the if statement, followed by the evaluation, what it is you are going to be evaluating. Value number 1 equal to value number 2, followed by the then statement, okay, the then keyword. So if 2 equals 2, then. If this is going to be true, then it's going to be immediately followed by some bit of code that you're going to do, that you want to have the system perform. And in this particular case, just as a marker to myself, I just say do something, and you'll notice I prefix this with some sort of apostrophe. And the apostrophe basically tells Visual Basic, this is not actually code, this is a comment. This is something specific that I'm going to read as the coder, but is not an actionable item. It's not something that the code is supposed to actually be doing. Okay? Then we follow it with the else statement. Now I just want to tell you that the else keyword is not required. You do not need to have an else block. You could specifically do just if 2 equals 2, then do something, and then you could do the end if. That could be the end of your statement. You don't need the else statement. All right, then we're going to follow that, of course, up by some sort of code to do. If the evaluation, if the expression does not evaluate to true, then you're going to do something else in this else statement. And then that's going to be followed by the end if set of keywords here. So this is saying if 2 equals 2, then do something in code, okay? If 2 does not equal 2, that would be where the else statement comes into place, because then we're going to say do something else. So you're going to do this code if this is true, do something else if this is false, if this evaluates to false. So then, of course, we end our if statement with the end if statement. All right, so our if block, our if code block here is going to always end with an end if statement so that VBA knows this is the end of the entire if code block. Now, a more real-world example would be something like this. Dim x as integer, and you'll notice I have a comma here, followed by yes, no as boolean. Now, this would be the same as if I had put this yes, no as boolean down on another line and dim did as well. This is just kind of shorthand so that I don't have to keep repeating the dim statement and taking up a whole bunch of rows here in my code. I can just simply say dim x as integer and yes, no as boolean. All right? So now we're going to assign x a value of 2. And then we're going to say evaluate. If x equals 2, then do something. We're going to say, we're going to assign the yes, no boolean variable here. We're going to assign it a value of true. Else, so if x is not equal to 2, then yes, no equals false. All right? And then, of course, we always end our if code block with an end if statement. So if x equals 2, then set the yes, no boolean variable here to true. Else, so if x is not equal to 2, then yes, no equals false and end if. So that's more of a real-world example. And I'm going to go ahead and back out here and go into Access. And let's actually do something here, a little bit more fun. I want to go to my event handler here for the click event on the button. And you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to change this. I'm going to go ahead and let's do this. Let's make this a checkbox. Let me see if I can do this. I might have to delete this. I don't think I can change this to a... no, I can't. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to make this a checkbox. Okay? And I'm going to say yes or no. All right? So this is a checkbox, right? And I'm also going to give it a default value of false. That way it's going to start off unchecked. And I also need to give it a name. So check yes, no. All right. So this now has this check yes, no checkbox is going to start out with a default value of false. All right, and just let's see what that looks like. You'll see it says yes, no is unchecked. Okay. And then in my go button here, I'm going to go to the on click event, and let's get rid of this here. Let's just delete that. So we had dim x as integer, and we put a comma, yes, no as boolean. All right. Then we're going to say x equals 2. If x equals 2, then yes, no equals true. Else yes, no, no equals false. And if, and then what we're going to do is we're going to assign the value from the yes, no to the checkbox. So we're going to say check yes, no equals yes, no. All right. So what we're doing here is that evaluation. We're saying x equals 2. If x equals 2, then set the yes, no boolean to true. If it is not equal to 2, then yes, no equals false. And then whatever the value is of the yes, no boolean, we're going to assign to the checkbox yes, no. Let's see what happens when we run this, okay? Right now it's unchecked. If I click on go, we magically get our checkbox checked to yes. All right, see how neat that is? And just so you can see what happens here, oops, I hit the wrong button there. Just so you can see what happens if that does not evaluate to true. Let's go x equals 3. All right, save that. And let's view it. Click go. And our checkbox disappears because 3 does not equal 2. All right, we're going to get a little bit more in depth into some of these evaluations. Clearly, we haven't gone over everything about the if and if statement. We're getting a little bit more complex here with some of the design pattern. And I hope to see you in the next video.